Hello and welcome back. These are my revamps of the LEGO Hero Factory Brain Attack villains, and today I'm going to showcase them next to their original counterparts. And let's just start things off with Bruiser. So before I go over all of the stuff that is specific to Bruiser, I'm going to go over some things that are kind of universal to all the sets. With one exception, I got rid of all the human hands because I thought they looked kind of weird, and I also got rid of the weird shoe feet because they look terrible. These are supposed to be animals, and the default Hero Factory feet just look specifically like shoes. But anyway, on to the actual figure. I went and removed all of the gunmetal because I did not really like the way it looked on the original. I thought it was too dark and too metallic looking. I decided to swap out this set-ruining punching gimmick for an actual gearbox that looks so much better and looks so much more natural, and he can actually pose his arms. I made mine with just as much bulk as I can, give him a more menacing appearance and give him the actual worthiness of being called Bruiser. I'm pretty happy with the way the torso armor turned out, just with some of those Technic T pieces and some of those Exoforce robot arms holding some of that armor in place. Gives it a nice kind of messy look, like it's a bunch of rocks clumped together. I decided to give him fingers because that's just something the original set lacked for some reason. And you might notice that the rocks on his shoulder are extra shiny. That's because these are the silver ones that came with the Protector of Earth and not the gray ones that came with the original set, but the color's close enough for me to not really care. So let's move on. Next up we have Pyrox. So personally, I think the original Pyrox is a pretty good set with only a handful of issues stopping it from being perfect. And those issues really being that LEGO decided to include parts that broke up his color scheme, like this gunmetal chestplate and the green head that you can see through his mouth. So I decided it would be appropriate to deviate a little bit from the original concept. I decided to keep the overall general Minotaur look of the figure with the hooves and the horns. Like I said earlier, I got rid of the human hand because I thought it just looked weird. So I decided the claw on his left hand looked so cool that I would just have him have dual claws. I decided to add a tail. I don't really have any explanation, I just thought it looked cool. I decided to swap the brain out for the black polybag brain because the original Pyrox is a little weird. All of the other Brain Attack villains have brains that match their color scheme, but for whatever reason, this red and black set includes a yellow brain. And I mean, I have no issue with the way it looks on the original, but for the sake of consistency, I decided to swap mine out for a black one. And I decided to swap the head piece out for a blue one so it doesn't stick out as much as the green one, because that's just kind of a weird issue that this set has, because LEGO refused to release the Brain Attack head in red, and it still annoys me to this day. But anyway, that's pretty much it for Pyrox, so let's move on to the next one. Next up is Skerox. So, pretty much nothing was kept from the original because the original was terrible. I decided to go ahead and just make a full-on 8-legged spider because LEGO decided that they didn't want to do that for some reason. I got these transparent yellowish-green swords from a Ninjago set, and I liked them as fangs so much I decided to make it his secondary color. And I decided to use the yellow brain as well. I'm pretty happy with the way the abdomen turned out. I think it's pretty proportionate and looks pretty good for a spider, as well as the Chima chestplate. I really like the shaping that you can get with that piece. And here's a quick look as to how this thing is actually constructed. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Skerox. And here is Ogram. So the original is also a pretty solid set. For mine, I decided to go with a more Tolkien-esque inspiration of a warrior orc. I decided to add more gunmetal since the original had that, and it's kind of a specific armor look and also helps my ogram stick out amongst the crowd a little more. I did cut out the bright transparent green, but something I am happy with are these Savage Planet nameplates that I got the printing off of with nail polish remover. I think it looks pretty good. I also really like the way this Umarak the Hunter chestplate looks, as well as the kind of gut that I gave him. This is my only revamp to feature non-LEGO pieces. These little chains right here, they come from an Ionix Venusaur set. And I think they're a pretty simple and effective way to add vine elements to this figure, similar to what the original had. I swapped the flail weapon out simply because this just doesn't really work for posability, and exchanged it for a club that I think fits kind of the brutish orc personality that the original had pretty well. I think the only real change I would make to this figure is swapping the bright green brain out for the dark green one that came with Skerox, but it's not really that high on my priority list. But yeah, that's it for Ogram. And here is Frostbeast. So I think the original is the biggest victim of the weird human hands and shoes because it just looks, again, it just looks weird. It does not make him look like an animal. But anyway, on to mine. I'm pretty happy with the entire stature of this thing. I really like the way that some of these spikes look like unkempt fur, as well as, well, the Chima fur pieces. I think it just turned out really nice looking. So something that kind of sticks out on mine is the color red, and I decided that these 4 little red spikes on the original were justification to just integrate red into mine's color scheme. I don't know, maybe I'll take the red out of it and this thing will only be white and blue in the future, but I think it looks pretty good right now. I am pretty happy with the way that this leg design turned out. The only real issue with it is that its foot can't move forward at all, so posability can be a little tough, but it just gives it a nice, real solid look. I also like the Skull Warrior chest plate that I'm using, kind of gives them like an icicle look. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about Frostbeast. Next up is Aquagon. So I think the biggest issue with the original is the fact that it just doesn't look like an aquatic animal. Apart from the face, there's really nothing that screams aquatic animal. So I spent some time brainstorming, and originally he had a bunch of tentacles, but I got kind of tired of that design. I thought it was a little too simplistic. So I went to redesign him, and someone suggested I make him a merman, and I think it turned out pretty nice looking. I especially love the way that this tail has some fairly organic movement to it. I decided to use the same blades because they're just really cool looking pieces, and I decided to extend the hilts because I just had these yellow axles lying around. And yeah, Aquagon is the exception to the no human hand rule because it just works fine for this figure. But yeah, that's really all I have to say about this figure. And finally, the star of the show, Dragonbolt. So yeah, let's just get this out of the way. This thing is not as tiny as the original. Yeah, that was essentially the main goal with this revamp is, yeah, make this, but bigger. But anyway, let me just pick up the camera and show you the wings, which are pretty much entirely made out of electricity. With the exception of these Chima blades, just because I think they give a little extra shaping. I used the Captain America CCBS chest plate, just with some nail polish remover to remove the printing, and I think that looks pretty good. Gives a pretty organic and natural shape there. The jaw can open and close just like the original, and I just decided to put a, I don't know, electric fireball, I guess is what Raka calls it. I also went and fixed the proportions on the tail, because the tail on the set is like a third of the size that it was shown off in the show. And yeah, I think I pulled it off pretty well. I love the use of transparent bones, and I kind of like this kind of tip with just more electricity, as well as the breakout surge chest plates littered throughout the figure. I think it also just looks great and definitely gives more of the boss fight vibe that the original should have had. So having the electric piece in his mouth actually does prevent him from closing his jaw, but that's just easily removed. Just pop it out, now close his jaw. And yeah, I think it just looks a lot more menacing with the sharp underbite compared to the original. So a common issue that a lot of figures this size will have is posability, and I mean this thing can hold poses fine. The wings use a piston system that gets the job done. Maybe it could be a little better. The shoulders also work pretty fine, as well as the back legs. They're just regular CCBS bones, but yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for this masterpiece. Ego stroking aside, if you enjoyed, make sure you leave a like, a comment down below. If you haven't already, subscribe. I'm 2 more videos away from concluding this series, so make sure you don't miss out, and I will see you next time.